I'd like to invite Mr. Harvey Eagle, chaplain of our local American Legion, to come up and give us our blessing and our Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us go to the Lord in prayer. Father God, we thank you for the beautiful day. We thank you for the opportunity to gather here and to show spirit to America. America needs that spirit. We also ask that you bless the food that we're about to partake, that it be used to the wellness and to the abilities and skills that we all have to make America better. We ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
We'll join you for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hurrah! Hurrah!
That means we got veterans in the room if you hear barking. You know, it was interesting. This is the first time I've actually had the honor and pleasure of meeting Congressman Franklin in person. And I'm retired Air Force. I was a flight engineer rescue, and the difference between being a fighter pilot and commissioned officer and an enlisted non-commissioned officer in the Air Force is the hair. Y'all notice that? Like, congressmen, naval aviators can be 80 years old and still look like they can put that flight suit back on any time and fly. And I think Congressman Franklin, when I saw him, I'm thinking, this guy, he is sharp. He looks like he can ride it back in that jet. But with me, I don't even know if my helmet or flight suit would fit anymore. So it sure is nice to have him here. It's nice to have a fellow veteran that looks out for the great things that we have happening here. It's great to have him here, and I hope that this moment can be celebrated on a great note to have our representative here to share this time with us. I'd like to recognize real quick our host for this beautiful facility. He's done an amazing job for Lake Wales Arts, and he just would like to speak to you for a moment. He dedicates his whole life to the culture of arts here at Lake Wales. He's done an amazing job, and he will need our continued support for this great aspect of our community. Let's welcome up our host today, Executive Director of the Arts Council for Lake Wales, Tommy Frank.
Thank you, Skip. It's great to have you guys here. I don't fit into my flight suit either, but I do fit into my apron in the pottery studio, so I got that going for me. I just wanted to share a note with you guys today while we have a moment here. Again, good afternoon to friends and neighbors, and thank you for the opportunity to share a brief word, especially in the presence of Congressman Franklin. We're grateful for the leadership and the time that you give us today. As someone deeply involved in the arts community, I want to lift up truth that we all live with here in Polk County, that the arts are not just beautiful, they are essential. They inspire our children, connect our neighborhoods, and tell the story of who we are. But even more than that, the arts are a powerful economic driver. In Florida alone, arts and culture contribute over $50 billion to the economy annually, supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs from performers and teachers to technicians and event staff. Even here in Lake Wales, our concerts, exhibitions, and festivals attract visitors from across the region, fueling our small businesses and energizing our downtown. When we invest in the arts, we invest in a vibrant, connected, and prosperous community. So today, in the spirit of partnership and progress, I invite us all, including our congressional leadership, to continue standing up for the arts, not as a luxury, but as a necessity. Thank you, and I hope you guys enjoy our time together today.
All right, I know everybody's hungry, so what we're going to do is we're going to start up front with the congressman's table here. If y'all would, please go right over this way to the line. Y'all can follow suit, and we'll just go straight back, table to table. Lunch is now served. He also served as Lakeland City Commissioner and Mayor Pro Tem. Following a successful 20-year career in the Insurance and Risk Management as President and CEO of Lanier Upshaw, which later merged with BKS Partners. In Congress, he serves on the powerful House Appropriations Committee, working on military construction and Veterans Affairs, agriculture, and energy and water, and chairs the Environment Subcommittee on the House Science Space Technology Committee. In 2023, he was appointed to the U.S. Naval Academy Board of Visitors. A 1986 graduate himself of the U.S. Naval Academy, he earned an MBA from Embry-Riddle and completed executive training at the Air Command and Staff College and the famous Wharton School, the University of Pennsylvania's renowned business and leadership program. He and his wife, Amy, have been married over 30 years and have 3 adult children. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Congressman, Scott Franklin.
Thank you so much. It really is a privilege to be here for a lot of reasons. I've never been in this building before. I've driven past it on 60 for decades now, and often just thought what a beautiful facility it is. And I'm happy to know that it's just as pretty inside as it is outside. And I appreciate the community's efforts to keep this restored and make sure that they get taken down for something else. I was speaking with someone before about, they're asking about a copy of what I was going to say today, and I said all I've got really is a couple of bullet notes. I just want to talk about a few things, and then hopefully we'll have some time to open it up. And Alice has now gone to the very back. If you can keep me on the timeline, I know I do have to catch a flight on the back end of this, but I do want to save time for questions at the end. So I figured I'd give a little bit of an overview of what's happening in Washington. Maybe that'll spur some questions. And I would say up front, if there's anything that we don't get to today that you'd like to talk about, please reach out to our office. Alice Hunt, Alice, raise your hand back there. She's in the red jacket. She is our district director. She runs everything here in Florida while I'm up in DC. We have a district staff and a DC staff. So if there are questions you have, you can reach out to our office. If you'd like to have an appointment and come meet with us, we can do that. And several of you have already talked to me about those things. We'll get those on the calendar. And then also we do telephone town halls every month. I've got one of those coming up this coming Monday. You can reach out to our office to get signed up for one of those. You can, if you're on Facebook, if you do that sort of thing, you can go to our Facebook page and sign up there. And with those that we do monthly, we dial out to about 50,000 random numbers across the district, and then we take the folks who have opted in. So we have several hundred who opt in. And over the course of those, each one of those teletown halls, we get about anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 people that come online for during those hours. And we have found that with a district the size of Florida 18, that's the best way to consistently reach people. You know, I had some say, hey, I haven't seen you in Lake Wales. Well, I haven't, actually, I was looking back, I haven't been to an event in Lake Wales since last year. But Florida 18, that I have the privilege of representing now, covers Polk, Highlands, Hardy, Glades, Hendry, DeSoto, Okeechobee, Hendry, I didn't already say that, Paracoli. It's an 8-county district that runs essentially from I-4 down to the Everglades. So as I tell people who aren't from Florida, and you've probably heard this from others that you know from other parts of the country, if people don't know Florida, they think we all need to live at Disney World or at the beach. And I say, no, there's actually a lot of Florida that you're not familiar with. In fact, Florida 18 is the largest agricultural district east of the Mississippi. And a lot of people don't realize how big agriculture, you do here in Lake Wales, you certainly know, and particularly with citrus and cattle. But we have a lot of territory. I do have more cows than registered voters in Florida 18. A lot of people, my Texas friends don't realize that, and then they kind of get a kick out of that, how much cattle we have here. But you know, within our district, we've got not only 75% of all the state citrus, we've got most of the cattle, almost all the dairy, all the sugar cane, all the phosphate mining. So there's a lot of agricultural interest there. And if you go down through the towns of the counties that I have the privilege to represent, agriculture either directly provides that income, or all the industries and businesses that touch that and derive their income from that. So it's a big deal for us, and that's why I'm the vice chair of the Ag Subcommittee on Appropriations. And then I'm also chairman of the Environment Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. So that's a big committee that covers a lot of different things. It has things like NOAA and the Weather Service and all those, but it also has the Environmental Protection Agency and the Army Corps of Engineers. Everglades restoration is a big deal. The water projects that we have through the Kissimmee River Basin and where that goes down to Lake Okeechobee, it's a big deal for our district. So it's a way that I can directly impact those. I thought, Skip mentioned the committees I was on. I thought before I get into a little update of what's happening in Washington, I'd like to suspend disbelief for a minute and just talk about Washington and the way it should work. In an ideal world, if your government functioned perfectly, and some of you may know this, and it sort of expands a little bit on the old schoolhouse rock, you know, the old I'm just a bill, if you remember back to how that works. But in an ideal world, your federal government works on a fiscal year that starts on October 1st and ends September 30th, and we have the responsibility as Congress, we have the power of the purse. All the spending of the federal government originates in the House of Representatives, and then it goes to the Senate. So we have to get a budget passed, notionally. Again, remember, this is the ideal world, not the world we unfortunately you see play out. We should have a budget that's getting signed by the President every year in September. And in order to do that, we deliberate all through the spring in our Appropriations Committee, which is what I serve on. We have authorizing committees and appropriating committees, and the Appropriations Committee in Congress, the way I like to describe it in very simple terms, the authorizing committees write checks, the Appropriations Committee cashes checks. So it's one thing to promise money, it's another to actually appropriate it, and it's only when money gets appropriated that it actually gets spent. So in an ideal world, we start our hearings in the spring. We've been doing, since about February, having posture hearings. We bring in all the cabinet secretaries. We hear their wants list, their wish list, and the things they want to see happen in the next budget. And we start deliberating all that. We put those together in the different spending bills and appropriations. We're in the process now of, we've done all those through subcommittee. We're in the process of passing them out of the Appropriations Committee. We did military construction, Veterans Affairs, before I left town. We did the defense appropriations before we left last week. We didn't quite finish agriculture. We're going to finish that Monday night when we get back to town, and we have a few others. So between now and the end of July, we as appropriations are going to get all of our 12 bills passed, and then it'll be up for Speaker Johnson and Steve Scalise, the House Majority Leader, to get those scheduled for votes on the floor. In a perfect world, we get all of those passed out of the House before the end of July, because historically, Congress isn't in session in July. I think we should, personally. I think we should stay there until we get the work done, but that's just kind of the way the place functions. And in a lot of years, it's, every other year in the House, it's election season, so people are back home running for office, which is another thing we can talk in Q&A if people want to discuss that as far as term limits and how that goes. Definitely have some thoughts on it. But we are out of DC in August, and then we would notionally come back in September. The Senate, meanwhile, is doing their own version of this. We would hammer out any differences and then get a bill that we all agree upon, pass it, send it to the President, and it gets signed before the end of September. So on October 1st, the budget is in place and the government functions smoothly. Sounds easy enough, right? Congress hasn't passed a budget since the 90s, so almost 30 years. And what ends up happening, there's really three things that can happen. You either pass the budget like we should do it. We end up doing some sort of short-term spending, stopgap funding. They call them a short-term continuing resolution, which is basically just keep spending the way you've been doing it until we can get it worked out. Or you can do a full year continuing resolution, which is what unfortunately we ended up with last year, where we ended up not getting to a conclusion at all and just basically rubber stamped the previous year's budget and rolled it all out for this current fiscal year 25 that we're in. And then the only other option besides that is to shut the government down. And you hear that battered about a lot, as we get close to these shutdown deadlines of, we're going to shut the government down if we don't get it done by a certain time. History has shown, while a lot of people would think, hey, what's wrong with that? If you shut the government down, you guys aren't spending money. There's a lot of problems that come with that. It really doesn't solve anything. It doesn't save money. I can show you that factually. Every time we've ever had a government shutdown, it ends up costing more money, because not only do you have to go back and everybody who was furloughed during a shutdown gets paid back after the fact. So you don't save any salaries. People who are emergency or essential workers that are required to work during that time, a A lot of them end up being paid overtime to do it. So it doesn't, this notion that, well, you guys, it's so dysfunctional, let's just shut the place down for a couple of months and we'll save a lot of money. That's not the case. And a lot of services that need to happen don't happen. Military troops don't get paid, and a lot of other things like that. As a former military guy, and I understand, most of the country, almost half the country now, statistically, is living paycheck to paycheck. I can tell you our junior troops, particularly the junior enlisted, are definitely struggling from month to month to make pay. And I can't look troops in the eye and say, sorry, we can't get our act together in DC, so you guys aren't going to get paid. Social Security gets paid, Medicare, all the other entitlement programs like that, those still get paid even in a shutdown, but the troops don't, and government employees don't get it. So that's the way it's supposed to work. So against that backdrop, we're in the process of passing all these bills now, and to get it done, in the House of Representatives, you'll hear the number every now and then, 218. There's 435 members of the House, so in order to pass anything, you have to have 50% plus one, which is 218 votes. That's always the case for the House. In the Senate, they're really weird over there. They got a bunch of strange rules, and most of the things the Senate does require 60 votes. And you'll hear people talk about the filibuster a lot of times. We haven't had, either side, Republican or Democrat, haven't had 60 votes in quite a long time. So in order to get anything passed in the Senate, it requires a bipartisan effort. Right now, the current makeup, there's 53 Republican senators, 47 Democrats. So if something is part of the regular process, anything that's maybe a Republican idea that Republicans want to get passed, they've got to find 7 Democrats who will make it a bipartisan bill and vote for it. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. It doesn't matter how great an idea it is, it's just not going to happen. Except for this one rare exception that they call reconciliation. And it typically occurs when you have one party come into office. It's usually the new presidential term, when a new president comes in of a party, and both the House and the Senate are of that same party. Democrats had that in 2008. Republicans had it in 2016 when Trump first came in. Biden had it in 2020. In those special circumstances, there's a process that they call budget reconciliation, where all the regular rules go out the window, and you can put together a bill that only requires 50% plus one in both the House and the Senate. Still the same for us in the House. It's got to get 218 votes. But now in the Senate, you only have to have 51. With 53 Republican senators, notionally, Republicans ought to be able to, for those of you who are subchapter S corporations or sole proprietors, LLCs, there have been some great breaks in there. If you do R&D, research and development tax credits, accelerated depreciation on equipment investments, a lot of things that help business owners run their businesses, those things are going to go away. So it's important that we get this passed. Keep watching it. It's going to be an interesting thing as it unfolds over the next couple of months. But a hard and fast reality is our debt ceiling is something that's going to be coming up here. Probably, they keep estimating changing around probably by mid-August. So we've got to get some traction on this. A lot of folks know about Doge. Who's not heard of Doge, right? So Elon Musk is interesting. A couple of years ago, I think most people thought he was weird, but probably one of the smartest, most interesting guys in the world. He's done crazy things that we never would have imagined. He actually made practical electric vehicles when most other companies have struggled to make that happen. He's been able to do things in space that NASA hasn't been able to do since I was a school kid. But he came in and took over that Doge effort. I was part of a lot of those initial meetings. I've met several times with Musk. I would tell you, even Elon Musk has realized now how difficult it is to take on federal spending. I think he came in initially and said, we're going to cut $2 trillion worth of spending. Then it became $1 trillion. Then it came down to like $150 billion. And we finally had a rescissions package, H.R. 4, come over to the House last week that would cut $9.4 billion of spending. 9.4 is a long ways from $2 trillion. And I would tell you that it passed the House by one vote. So it's even when, again, that's back to what I'm saying, there's things in there that to me I would look at as no-brainers. Like, of course we can dial that back, we can reduce that. There are people who absolutely will go to the mat to not see a cut on anything. And I get it, it's noble. There's, you're trying to make little promises to people, but we're promising money that we don't have. And I really do struggle seeing the amount of money that we spend. And looking at my kids, I have 3 adult kids now, they're in their 20s. and saying, you know, yes, you guys have you still have the same opportunity for the American dream that we've all had. Well, is that really so? Well, a lot of them are racked up with student loan debt with degrees that can't get them jobs anymore. They can't save for a down payment on a house because, you know, they're too busy paying off student loans. It costs as much to rent an apartment as it does to make, you know, if you can come up with a down payment on a house, in a lot of cases it's cheaper to buy a house than it is to rent an apartment. So we're kind of, it's tough for young people. And a lot of this, I would argue, is because we as a country for way too long have been spending money that we don't have. And we've been spending my children and my future grandchildren's futures away from them. So we've got to dial it back. The problem though is anytime, you know, whether it's, you know, cutting money in your family budget or deciding on, you know, over the holidays, hey, I need to lose 10 pounds after the holidays, it's always, it sounds good, we all get gung-ho to go do it. The devil's in the details, and that's kind of where we are. So, layered on top of all that, there's a lot of other unrest in the world. Obviously this week there's been a lot happening with Iran. I haven't been a military person, I'll tell you, the last thing I ever want to see us do is committing our troops outside the country. I've been involved in that. I've been involved in some causes that were better than others. I've been involved in some that were really downright stupid, and some that in hindsight I think were politically motivated. It's very, very easy to get ourselves into a war. It's very difficult to get out of a war. And a lot of you understand that, and you've been there. And in particular, our Vietnam vets, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, but you know, I kind of came of age during the Ronald Reagan years, and I'm a firm believer in Reagan's mantra of peace through strength. I really do think it's important to have a strong military. The best way to not ever have to use your military is to have one that's capable of whipping up on the bad guys and making them believe that you're willing to use it if you have to. So I do part a little with isolationists who would say, no matter what, we don't ever want to go to war anywhere, it's not our problem, I'm not going to do it. I've served long enough, and I know a lot of you know this too. If you neglect problems in other parts of the world, the trouble's going to come find you. It will come to our doorsteps. It has done that before. It happened on 9/11. The warning signs were there before. The same people had attacked the Twin Towers years before that. We definitely have. There are sleeper cells here in the U.S. There are people who are waiting to do something bad to us at some point in the future. So we have to take it seriously. You know, as far as Iran goes specifically, they are just the bad actor in the Middle East. And everything that's been happening bad in that part of the world for decades now, Iran has had a hand in. Going back to 1979 when they overthrew the Shah and they took 444 hostages, all American hostages, prisoners there. You know, they held them for over a year. Since then, you know, whether it's Hezbollah in Gaza or Hamas in Gaza, or Hezbollah in Lebanon, or the Houthi rebels in Yemen, or supporting the Syrian regime, drones in Ukraine now, Iran has their hand in every bad thing going on in the Middle East. But to top all of that, they are very, very close to having a nuclear weapon, and they have said Israel doesn't have a right to exist as a country, and we will annihilate them and wipe them off the face of the earth. We cannot allow that to happen. I know President Trump is really wrestling with that debate, you know, really right now, what's the thing that we should do? Because, you know, back to, you know, peace through strength, the way we've held people at bay with these nuclear weapons is we have the B-2 bomber and we have the bombs that can go, you know, bust up these bunkers down deep and take those out. Nobody else in the world has that capability, and that has kind of held Iran at bay. I don't know what the president's going to do. That's his decision. And anybody who says they know right now, they really don't. But you know, it looks like Israel is doing a pretty good job on their own of taking care of business over there. My hope, and they are targeting military targets. I don't want to see this thing grow into a broader war. So hopefully, I'd like to see the Iranians come to their senses and do some negotiating without having to escalate this further. So you got that going on. Ukraine has been going on now for 3 years. You know, that's a mess. They're continuing to lose thousands of people on both sides week after week. It's hard. You know, the president came in and said, hey, I'm gonna end the Ukraine war the first day. We're gonna get all the hostages back. And they're just hard problems. And it's anybody that tries to make light and think that these world things like this are easy to do. They're just not. They're difficult. But it's why the hard work needs to be done. It's why I love doing it. It's a privilege to be able to serve, and you know, it's definitely a team sport. And I miss that from my Navy days. You know, I was served up a lot of years in the Navy, and I always told folks that the thing I liked about that job is, you know, the things that would happen on the news would influence what I might be doing the next day in my job as a naval aviator, or the things that we did in our jobs would be the kinds of things that make news. It is interesting to be a part of what's going on up there now. It's very frustrating, I tell you. The changes, if you want to be able to make rapid change and see the fruits of your labor, the things you guys are doing here in the community here in Lake Wales are a lot more gratifying. You get a lot more immediate gratification. I can tell you, even when I served on the city commission in Lakeland, we could make a decision on Monday, implement it, and then by a week or two, if we didn't like what was going on, we could change direction. So it's important to be involved, whether it's being involved in the chamber like you are, involved civically, involved in the community. Be a change maker where you are, and you don't have to be in Washington to change. And I can tell you, it's what you do locally is it's a lot more fun and more immediately gratifying than what we do up there. But it is a privilege to serve. I don't think anybody should do this as a career. It certainly won't be mine. I've had 2 careers already. I don't consider this a career. This is just a job I do for a little while, and then I'll hand the baton off to somebody else when that time comes, or if the voters decide they want somebody else to do that sooner than I do. But I'm very proud to represent Florida 18. I love showing people our district. I bring other members of Congress down here to show them what we do here in Florida, and it's the greatest place in the world. Everybody wants to be like Florida. Unfortunately, everybody wants to move to Florida, which we see. We can't build roads fast enough or to keep our infrastructure going. So that's an area that's really important to me, is working on our infrastructure and things to try to help steer the growth in the ways we want to do it. Because it's going to happen. You know, we can't close the door on growth, and we need it. We need jobs, and we need things that are going to make our young people, our kids, want to come back and be a part of the community. But we also have to make sure we don't give up the things that make our community special. So you all do a great job of that in Lake Wales, and I'm just proud as I can be to serve you, and it's a privilege. But I would love to open it up to whatever questions you guys have, and I think we've got about 10 minutes or so. Alice, where are we? Yeah. There's some questions out there. Anybody got? John, I know you got one.
Well, you mentioned about jobs and future opportunities, and it seems like AI, artificial intelligence, is coming on very quickly. And some of the pundits are saying that it can eliminate like 80% of jobs, white-collar jobs. So I just wondered what Congress is doing to kind of prepare for this new reality, or do you think this is going to be?
Well, I didn't pay John to say that, to ask that question. AI is a huge deal. I had the privilege, started out under Kevin McCarthy. I was chosen to be on the AI task force for that, and spent all of last year meeting with all different types of stakeholders from different groups, from education to science to medical research to defense, you name it. AI is going to be one of those things that challenges everything that we do. And I've heard it compared by some. Actually, the founder of Google said that he told me in a breakfast meeting, he said AI is going to be bigger than electricity. He said there's never been a technology on the face of the earth that's going to transform mankind like artificial intelligence. And that can be exhilarating, exciting. As a kid growing up, watching us send people to the moon, that kind of stuff just really gets me jazzed. I love the thought of what we might be able to do with it. It can also be terrifying. Just like anything like that, any kind of technology, even if it's our cell phones. Think of all the great things we do and we're able to do now that we couldn't do 20 years ago, before those, 25 years ago. But there's also a downside. So we're trying to figure out what's Congress's role to help protect the public, but we also don't want to stifle creativity and that invention, the stuff that's kind of made America lead the world. China's putting a lot into this. One of the big things that you've got to have for artificial intelligence is you've got to have a tremendous amount of data, which they really do a good job of because they're a police state. They surveil everybody. They're collecting data on everybody all the time, and they have all the things that we have. We have movies in this country, Hunger Games, and all these different things. They do this kind of stuff in China. You have a social score in China. They look at your habits. They watch who you talk to, what you do, what you say. They monitor your comings and goings, and they assign you a score depending on your loyalty to the country, and that determines where you're allowed to travel. And if you're not considered a very loyal Chinese citizen, member of the Chinese Communist Party, you don't get to leave your region.
Director She is in charge. She made sure I knew that title because I said some silly thing on the phone yesterday because I didn't know her official title. I knew she really handles a lot of things well for the congressman, but I think I said some old English thing like the lady in charge of the court or some idiot thing. And she says, I'm the district director. And the former chair of the Lakeland Chamber of Commerce. Speaking of the Chambers of Commerce, would the members of my chamber, board members, stand up real quick and be recognized? There they are. We have a little gift for you, Congressman, and Alice, for your efforts. We'd like to have you to have that as a token of our appreciation. And I have a real nice pin for you, one of the kind that you can travel with that won't bust in your coat pocket, okay? Ladies and gentlemen, the Congressman is going to have to leave right now because he's got a